Welcome back to our Let's Talk Tri-Delta podcast. I'm Mindy Tucker, Tri-Delta CEO, and so happy to be your podcast host for today. And I'm really excited to welcome back somebody that we have had around Tri-Delta World before, Caroline Fenton from our Delta Omega chapter at LSU. She is a sports journalist, currently working for Yahoo Sports, but we had a chance to get to know Caroline first when she was in a collegiate chapter for Tri-Delta, but then when she interned at ESPN. So I'm excited to reconnect today. From chapter president for her chapter to now covering some of the biggest events in sports, including the Super Bowl, which we're going to talk about. We're going to hear how Tri-Delta gave her the confidence to pursue this big career that she's got and her journey so far. We're also going to talk a little bit of sports, which is right up my alley. I love that. Caroline, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Always down to talk a little bit of sports and a little bit of Tri-Delta. Those are, two of my favorite things in the world, but so happy to be on with you today and finally able to reconnect after all these years.
Yeah. Well, it's great to see you again. And just to get to hear all the great things that are going on in your career. I want to take our listeners back to how it all began and how you ended up at LSU for school.
Yes. So I am born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and love St. Louis. It is home, but my parents are both from the state of Tennessee, and I have family kind of all around the South. So I knew that as much as I loved St. Louis and as much as I considered it home, I wanted to go to the South for school. And I always had a passion for sports. And I kind of thought that maybe that would be a fun career path to pursue. So I thought, okay, a school in the South and with big sports. And if I want to pursue sports journalism, a school that'll give me an opportunity to do that. So I looked around at schools that, my sister went to. She went to South Carolina. My parents went to the University of Tennessee. I thought I would end up there, a place far away from home, but still familiar. But then I kind of applied all around just to see what was out there. And I visited LSU. I didn't know a soul in the state of Louisiana, never knew a soul in the state of Louisiana before I decided to go to LSU. But I thought there's just something about it. It's gorgeous. First of all, the culture is amazing. The people are so incredibly welcoming. And the idea of doing something that was different, that I could have gone to a place that felt a little bit more comfortable, that had some more familiarity in my family, but I thought I can totally pave my own path here. And at that point in my life, I was kind of ready to branch out a little bit. So ultimately, I made that decision to do something different and go to LSU. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And I didn't know anyone there. So I thought, best way to make friends, best way to make a 30,000 plus person campus feel just a tiny bit smaller was to go through recruitment. And that's ultimately what led me to Tri-Delta. Another one of the best decisions I've ever made.
I love it. I know all the LSU Tri-Deltas out there are like, yes.
My girls.
I feel like there's so many more people these days. I live in California, and they're so much more aware of what that experience is at a Southern school that has sports. And so many more people they just want that more traditional sort of sports college experience. And they're deciding to go, which feels like it's such a culture shock when I look at some of the people out here, they're doing that for them, but they're really enjoying it. So it's interesting to hear you say, you grew up in St. Louis, but it was a little bit different. You knew what you wanted. And I love that your family was okay with you choosing a different SEC school. I know that can get dicey.
Oh, they loved it. It was an opportunity for them to come visit Baton Rouge, which is absolutely beautiful, and an excuse for them to get gumbo and beignets whenever they wanted. So they also fell in love, as much as they loved their own alma maters. They fell in love with LSU because it's hard not to, and because I loved it so much as well. So I also felt very lucky that I had such a great support system in my family that they were okay with me packing up the U-Haul and moving 800 miles away from home. So I feel very, very lucky to have that.
That's good. Well, tell me a little bit about your Tri-Delta experience and how you were involved there. You were chapter president, so that's obviously an experience unto itself. Those are not small jobs these days. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, not a small job in the slightest, but it was such a wonderful experience. All 4 years, and obviously that year as a chapter president as well. I joined Tri-Delta originally because it was just a place that just felt so easy. And everyone told me that going through recruitment, that there's going to be a place that just feels right. It feels easy. The conversations flow. And I don't think I really understood that that was a real thing. That once I walked into Tri-Delta, I met so many different types of people, different personalities with different backgrounds from different walks of life, from different areas. And I thought, this is just a place that I feel so comfortable and I feel so at home. And that doesn't mean that doesn't come with some trials and tribulations coming from far away. LSU, there's a lot of kids that come come from Louisiana. So whether you know someone from your high school or you know someone from camp or just friends of friends, I felt like there was already kind of a network that was created that I was trying to join. But tried out to me, that's so easy. I never felt like I was kind of on the outside looking in. I always felt embraced. I always felt celebrated. Everyone thought it was so cool that I was from so far away, which I thought I'm really not from that far. It's like 2 states
That
away,
far,
but
right?
it's not that far. But I always thought that that was so cool that maybe my quote unquote differences from coming from a different place and coming from a different hometown, that was something that was so celebrated in the chapter. And that just encouraged me more and more. That built up my confidence more and more. And it started to feel more like home than a place that was so far away from home.
Yeah.
So early on, I got tapped by some of the older members to do smaller jobs. And that would be an out of state recruitment coordinator for all of the out of state girls in recruitment. That was something that I didn't apply for. That was something that I didn't go out for. That was something that I was kind of tapped to do, that I was asked if I could do that. And I thought and I was my sophomore year, going into my sophomore year. So my first recruitment. So I thought, wow, that's something that they thought I would be great at, something that, they looked at me and thought that would be a good fit for that. So I think that just kind of grew my confidence more and more. Then I became the director of public relations and ran the Tri Delta social media account, kind of established a brand and a voice for that. And I loved kind of being the liaison between Tri Delta and all of our social media channels. And that ultimately brought me to collegiate chapter president. And looking back, going from recruitment where I didn't know a soul and then now being able to represent the chapter, it was just the absolute greatest honor. I had the best support system with the rest of the executive committee and with all of our advisors. I never felt, because it is, like you said, it's a really large job and it's a really large undertaking. And at that point in your life, at least where I was, I had a heavy class schedule and I was looking ahead to after graduation and trying to get internships and applying for jobs. There's a lot on your plate, but I at least felt very lucky that I never felt like it was too much. I never felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I think it was an opportunity for me that I grew up so much in the best possible way, that I understood I'm now representing something, as I always have, but now in a larger way, something so much bigger than myself. I got to learn member stories on a deeper level. I got to connect with so many more members on a much deeper level. One example that I love to talk about was when we welcomed in our new member class in the fall of 2019. So that would have been my last year at LSU. And she came to me, and she was an out-of-state student as well. She came to me and she said, I feel so homesick. I feel so out of place. I don't want to be here anymore. I just feel like this isn't where I'm supposed to be, which broke my heart to hear. But I got to talk to her about it. We talked it through. I said, maybe instead of trying to fit in here, how about you share your home and your life at home with some friends that you've made here? Maybe invite them home back to where you're from, and you can show them your favorite places from high school, and they can meet your family. They can meet your friends from home. And she ultimately ended up staying at LSU. She took that advice. She brought some friends home, and she said that really helped. So I think having that context in the background of me coming from out of state, and also being able to kind of share that a little bit and make that place feel a little bit smaller for other people was a great way and a great opportunity. I think that I could help others while also kind of growing and developing as a professional and a person myself.
Yeah, I love hearing about your belonging. I mean, that's what it was. You felt belonging there. You felt like that was your home.
Totally.
And for somebody who wasn't necessarily from right around there, or a Louisiana girl, as you said, I love hearing that story. So you mentioned earlier, I thought sports might be an interesting career.
Yeah.
Well, turns out, I guess it was. How did you get started, and what has that looked like for you?
Yeah. So I grew up a sports fan my entire life. Like I said, I'm from St. Louis, which is a huge, huge sports town, huge baseball town. That was kind of my first love. The Cardinals got to the World Series in 2006. So I was 9 years old then. And that's when I really started to learn about the sport and went to more games with my family. And I remember when the Cardinals were in the World Series, I lined up my dolls and my stuffed animals. And I was talking to them about what was happening during the game because I wanted them to be informed as well. So just kind of a little bit of a foreshadowing of what I would eventually do for my career. So that was, the early stages, just loving sports and loving storytelling. And so that's what brought me, one big reason that brought me to LSU was being able to cover LSU football and LSU baseball and LSU women's basketball. It's some of the biggest brands in all of college sports. So at LSU, I got involved in Tiger TV, which is the student-run news station. I was a sports reporter and then ended up being sports director my senior year and got to cover amazing events. I mean, I covered LSU football games almost every Saturday night at home. I got to go to Phoenix to cover LSU in the Fiesta Bowl. I got to go to Orlando to cover LSU football in the Citrus Bowl. So I got to go and be like an actual real life reporter. And I interned at some local stations in Baton Rouge as well, which gave me great experience of what life is really like in a professional newsroom, while also getting that more hands-on experience with Tiger TV. So I think that was one big thing that was emphasized to me from some people in the business when I was in college was make sure that this is what you want to do, because this is a really hard industry. You work weekends, you work holidays, you work late nights, you work early mornings, and in some situations, you don't always get compensated very well for it. But that's where I learned that this is definitely what I want to do, even with the highs and the lows and some of the not so glamorous parts that may come with this job. I knew that I really had a passion for it. And so that's how I got my start.
Yeah. Let's add to that, a female in a male dominated industry. I can't imagine all the different facets there are to what you've been through. Okay. So you start at ESPN.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Yes. So I applied to so many different jobs my senior year of college. And one piece of advice for any, collegiate members listening to this is apply everywhere. Apply to the jobs that you feel like you do not have any business getting. Apply to the jobs that you feel like are absolute dream jobs, because that's what I did. When I applied for an internship at ESPN, I thought there is no way that I can get to ESPN. That is crazy. But I applied anyways. And ultimately, that's the job that I got. So about a month after I graduated, packed my stuff up and I moved up to Bristol, Connecticut for an internship with the social and digital live stream team. So basically what our job was to take existing ESPN shows like College Game Day and Sports Center and Baseball Tonight, all of those existing shows on TV, and kind of turn them into a digital show. So a little bit more laid back, a little bit more of a younger audience. So I got an internship doing that, and then ultimately turned that into a full-time job. So I was with ESPN doing that as a social media producer for about a year and a half. And that was such an amazing opportunity. I got to travel with College Game Day. That just so happened to be the year that LSU won the national championship game. So it was just
not bad timing.
The most perfect, like the universe winked at me and said, this is exactly where you need to be. And it was so amazing because I got to a very unique part of working in digital is there's no rules. In TV or in more terrestrial forms of media, you have to hit your breaks. You have certain things and certain parameters that you have to fit into. In digital, you throw something at the wall, and if it sticks, amazing. And if it doesn't, that's okay. Scrap it, move on from it, learn why it didn't work, and then try again. So I really loved at ESPN how I really got to kind of flex that creative muscle.
Fun. Okay. And then is that when you moved to Yahoo? I feel like you moved from ESPN to Yahoo, or was that something else in between? But I know you're there now. So talk to us about what you're doing now.
I'm at Yahoo now. I actually had to stop in between. During COVID, I just kind of had a reflective moment, which I feel like we all probably did when we were stuck in our homes. I had kind of a reflective moment of, I don't think that this is what I need to be doing anymore. I just didn't feel so passionate about the work that I was doing anymore. And I wasn't in love with my life at the time, personally and professionally. And I thought, what am I doing? If I'm not happy, make a change, which was frankly terrifying to go from ESPN, a place where I had, I was so supported professionally and financially, and I was able to be at the worldwide leader in sports. I thought it was crazy that I would voluntarily step away from that. But I thought, if I'm not happy, I need to make a change. And I felt like I wasn't happy because ultimately my dream, what I always wanted to do, the reason why I went to LSU and got involved in student media was because I wanted to be on air. That was always my dream. And I thought, if I don't do it now, when am I going to? And if 30, 40 years from now, and I'm looking back on my career, I question what could have been, what could I have done, what could have I achieved if I would have gone for that dream. So I thought I'm going to do it. And so I applied to several different on-air jobs, from TV to more digital roles to a radio role. And there just so happened to be a radio station in Nashville where a coworker of mine at ESPN got his start. They were looking for somebody with some expertise in digital live streaming, which was what I did at ESPN. And I was looking for an opportunity on air. So it was just kind of the most perfect marriage of I had what they needed. They could offer what I wanted in my career. So in March of 2021, I moved from Connecticut to Nashville, and I was on air in Nashville doing sports talk radio for about 3.5 years. For 2 years, I was in kind of a sidekick role that grew over those 2 years, but just kind of learned the business, learned what it's like to host a radio show because I zero radio experience.
Right.
And then after those 2 years, I felt like I was ready to take that next step. And then I hosted my own show for about a year and a half after that. And then I got a call from my former boss from ESPN and said, I've been following your radio show. I've been following your work. And obviously I know you from ESPN, know, your work ethic and the way that you go about things. We're looking to expand our on-air host areas and avenues at Yahoo Sports, and we think that you would be a perfect fit. So I came over to Yahoo in June of 2024. So coming up about 7 or 8 months now.
I love hearing that trajectory. I think some of the times those decisions where you're going against the norm, like you said, everybody was like, "You're at ESPN, why would you give that up?" But you're going
Yeah,
against the norm. You have your reasons for doing it, but people looking in don't understand it. I think those are some of the hardest moves to make,
totally.
because you know it's good for you, but it might not appear obvious to everybody on the outside. So, but obviously, you made the good decision.
Yes.
Um, this sounds like an incredible job. All the fun things that you get to cover and do.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about like the day to day and what's been the most exciting thing that you've been able to do so far.
Oh my gosh, the list is so long and it is such a blast. It is so much fun. And I've kind of been able to marry those two loves of being able to be creative and digital, but also be on air and be a host. It's kind of the perfect combination of my previous two stops in my career. So day to day is different every single day. And I kind of love that, frankly, that I wake up and might not even know where I'm going to be tomorrow because they might put me on a flight for something. And it's been so fun. So day to day, I host podcasts for Yahoo Sports. So mainly my main focus is college sports, college football in the fall, and I'm now focusing in on college basketball now in the spring. So I have a biweekly podcast that I host, and then reactions to games. So USC and UCLA are playing next week on the women's side, so I'll have a reaction to that game and anything big that happens in the world of sports. A coach gets fired or a player's out for the year. I'm kind of on air
Mavericks
giving my
trade
reaction.
Luka. The Mavericks
The
trade Luka.
the Mavs trade Luca to Los Angeles, which what in the world are they thinking? What are they doing? But yet that was exactly my reaction video that I had to record for Yahoo is what in the world are they thinking? And then there's all sorts of other things, which is a blast. I got a call from my boss about a month or so ago, and he asked me, how much do you know about women's soccer? And I said, frankly, not a lot, but I'll learn. He said, okay, great. I need you on a flight to LA in 4 days. And I have 30 interviews set up for you with NWSL players, one-on-one interviews. And so I was like, okay, wonderful. Let's research everything that there is to possibly know about the NWSL. And I'm so glad that I did because I've fallen in love with this league, getting to talk to the players and learn about their backgrounds, learn how they got there, how much the league is booming. So that was a wonderful experience. I'll be going to Los Angeles in a couple of weeks to record a Selection Sunday reaction. And then I'll be heading to the Women's Final Four in Tampa at the end of March. I was just at the Super Bowl in New Orleans a few weeks ago, which was an amazing experience. I got to interview Joe Burrow and Aaron Jones, the running back for the Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. I got to interview Keegan-Michael Key, the comedian, which was so much fun. We just had a laundry list of athletes and celebrities that we got to sit down with. So going to the Super was my very first Super Bowl experience. And, it was
whole environment has got
crazy.
to be almost circus-like because
It is.
game
Yes.
is like the minor player and the game happens, but there's so much going on around it
Yeah.
with celebrities and artists and I mean just people showing up to do things around it, brands probably launching things
Oh my
and
gosh.
I
There
mean I
were
can't even imagine how you're navigating what to even cover when you're there.
It's a lot, frankly, but it's also so much fun. You know, I always tell myself whenever I'm getting overwhelmed or whenever I was overwhelmed in New Orleans in the Super Bowl, I kept reminding myself, like, hello, you're in the Super Bowl, you're covering the Super Bowl. Like it's okay. Take the overwhelming feelings as they come and just remind yourself, like, this is what you've always, this is the Super Bowl. Hello. And so I definitely had to pinch myself a few times, you know, walking down the street and running into different athletes or different journalists and sports broadcasters that I've looked up to forever. And now we're just, you know, bumping elbows at the Super Bowl. And it was crazy. Like, they call it Media Row throughout the week. So I was at in New Orleans at Media Row for the week leading up to the game, and Bounty paper towels had this massive, like, like home. Like they built a home in the New Orleans Convention Center, and they were giving out wings, and there were all these structures that brands were sponsoring, and you could come by and try their products. It was truly an experience unlike any other. It was truly the Super Bowl of media events.
Yeah. It's funny. It's fun to hear you talk because I think sometimes when you have a love and then you go into work in that
Mhm.
business that you love, you see a different side of it and you can get jaded.
Yeah.
It's fun to see your spirit still strong around sports and what you're doing, even though you're working in it.
It is something that, you know, everyone says they want to work in, or so many people say that they want to work in sports, that they want to do sports. And I always encourage people to do that. But I always remind people we are having fun. We're not saving lives. I respect the people that do, but frankly, I don't have the nerves of steel for that. We're not doing cancer research. We're not saving lives. We're having fun. We're talking about a sport. We're talking about, you know, a business of things that truly this is supposed to be fun. We're creating content for people to kind of escape from the craziness of the world and the craziness of everyday lives. And it's difficult. I won't lie. There are days that I have to remind myself that, you know, I'm in this because I love it, and I'm in this because this has always been my dream. I think the biggest crossroads for me came early in my career in Nashville radio. I was the very first female on air voice at the radio station that I worked for, which I was
Um,
incredibly honored. That was a title that I was very honored to have. But it came with a lot of challenges because, frankly, there are a lot of people that don't believe that me or other women, or maybe people that don't look like the traditional sports broadcaster, aren't qualified to be there, or shouldn't be there, don't deserve to be there. Get the comments all the time of, what do you know? You never played the sport. Or, you know, her husband is just telling her to regurgitate these things. Or, you know, she's not smart enough to do this. On and on and on. You name it. I've heard it. I've been tweeted it. I've been, you know, called in on the
sure.
radio. And in the beginning, that was really, really hard on me. I started to believe the things that people were telling me. But then I told myself, I've worked my butt off to do this. Like, I have worked so hard to be in this position. I'm not going to let some, you know, Titan fan 123 on Twitter tell me that I'm something that I know that I'm not. I
Right.
always reminded myself that line from Legally Blonde when she's, you know, crying in the salon saying she's quitting law school, and she had a law professor say, if you're going to let one stupid man, you know, tell you what you can't do, then you are not the girl that I thought you were. And I always kind of reminded myself of that. There are people out there that are going to try and kick me down. There are going to be people out there that have opinions, but those opinions don't matter because those people don't care about me or my career or my trajectory. The only people whose opinions matter to me are my family, my bosses, my coworkers, my mentors, the people who genuinely care about my success. So
Yeah.
I've kind of reminded myself of that. And it's something I have to practice every single day, something I have to remind myself of every single day. But you learn and you grow, and that confidence comes with it.
I think that's great advice for all of us out here trying to make it however we're
Mhm.
trying to make it. Are there any lessons or pieces of Tri Delta that you still carry with you today? Things that you learned there, skills you picked up there that you feel like prepared you for today, or you still are leaning on today?
So many. And that's always what I tell people whenever, you know, young girls, if it's my friends' little sisters or cousins or anyone in my life that's going into college, they ask me if Greek life is something that they should do. I always say, well, if you're interested, do it. Go through it, you know, see if it's for you. But I always tell them that it's not a 4-year thing that you do. And it's not just really fun parties and recruitment. Those things are very fun. But I said, I still, I'm shaped by Tri Delta, that my experience in Greek life absolutely shaped the person that I am now. And part of that, one big area of that is confidence. I mentioned how I was kind of tapped to do certain things early on in my Tri Delta tenure. And I think that showed me that these girls, these people that I think are the coolest people in the world, people that I look up to, people that I want to be friends with, they think I'm good. They think that I would be good at this, me. Then I started to believe it myself. So that kind of foundation of my confidence grew more and more and more, the more responsibilities that I had and the more opportunities that Tri Delta gave me. I've carried that so much more into my adult life. Bravery and boldness are always things that stick with me a lot. It's not easy to get up on a microphone and talk about a football game, and that's in my role, but it's the same thing in a boardroom. It's not easy to stand up in a meeting and give your opinion, or to say something that isn't right in a conversation with a friend, or in the workplace, or whatever it might be, to say, hey, what I think you're doing isn't right, isn't nice, isn't good, so on and so forth. None of those things are easy. That takes a lot of confidence, and that takes a lot of bravery. But those are the things that are going to catapult you in your friendships, in your any relationships, in your career. The ability to speak up for yourself, and to stand up for yourself, and to stand up for other people who may not be able to stand up for themselves, takes bravery, takes boldness, and it takes a lot of kindness. Best advice I could give someone is work hard and be nice to people. And I think that's a lot of principles that I learned in Tri Delta. It's not just about, grinding and being the best out there, because absolutely that's what you should strive to be, but always be nice to people, not just the people that can advance you in your career, but also the people that look up to you. Also, maybe the people who are quote unquote below you on an organizational chart. Just a smile, a thank you, a how are you, how can I help you, to anyone, that goes such a long way. And all of those things, I think, are principles that we should all have throughout the entirety of our lives, but definitely are some core principles that really hit home for me in Tri Delta.
Yeah, I love hearing that, how that plays out for you still. You're just full of such great advice, I think, for everybody today.
Oh, thank you.
All the things you're sharing. What does Tri Delta look like in your life today? Are you still in touch with sisters? How does it play out in your life now?
Yeah, absolutely. Still in touch with sisters. I got engaged last month, so I'm planning my wedding, and my bridesmaids, 4 of the 6 of them, 2 that are my sister and my fiance's sister. The other 4 are all Tri Deltas, all friends that I made, whether it was on bid day or throughout my Tri Delta experience. I'm the maid of honor in one of my best friend's weddings next month, and I met her through Tri Delta, and I'm still in touch with so many of my best friends that all came from Tri Delta, and even friends that I may not stay in contact with every day, but will always have that background and that foundation of friendship from Tri Delta. And if they ever came calling of, hey, I'm moving to town, or I'm coming to town, or hey, I need something, I need you, would always be there for them. And I know that they would always be the same for me. So those relationships, those friendships, whether it's your best friend in the world, or if it's, the girl 2 member classes ahead of you that lives in a city that you're moving to and you just need some advice of where to live, those relationships absolutely have been, integral in not just my college life, but my adult life. And like I said, I originally went through recruitment to make a campus feel so much smaller. I can attest that once you graduate and go into the adult world, it's scary, but having Tri Delta and having those friendships also makes this big world feel just a little bit smaller.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a lifetime. It does
It
not go
is.
away for college. It is truly for a lifetime. What, your job takes up a lot of time, I assume.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
Yeah, I love to travel. I live in Nashville, but I'm actually in Phoenix right now, just looking for wedding venues, but also just kind of exploring, hiking around the desert, exploring, new areas of the city that I haven't seen before. I got to go to Europe actually with one of my best friends from Tri Delta. This past summer is my first trip to Europe, so that was amazing. So any chance I can get to travel, whether it's, a new town near Nashville that's just an hour and a half away, or if it's halfway across the world, any chance I can get, free time from work and, a couple extra monies here and there. I always love to travel. I'm a huge yogi. I love yoga and bar and Pilates. Anytime I can, just step away from the computer and just have some time of movement, it's so important. I'm also a dog foster. So
Oh,
I'm gone now, but whenever I go back home, I have a sweet foster baby named Cece. So if you're in the Nashville area and you're in the market for a new dog, she's precious. But yeah, I love to foster dogs. My work schedule is just a little bit too demanding to have a dog of my own right now. So it's so nice to be able to open it up to a sweet little pup that needs some loving.
that's a great way to do it. I love that.
Yeah, it's a blast.
What is next for you? What's coming up for Caroline?
Yes, yes. So we are looking ahead to the NCAA tournament. So we'll have a ton of March Madness coverage. I'll be in Los Angeles at Yahoo's headquarters doing some shows there. I'll be heading to Tampa for the women's Final Four at the end of the month. So that's kind of next up on the agenda. Once we get through March, then maybe we can breathe a little bit. I told myself once we got through football season, I'd be able to breathe a little bit. And then they were like, nope.
There's
No,
always something.
there's always
something else.
always a next thing. There's always something else. So yeah, that's in the short term. And then looking ahead over the next year or so, just more and more college football coverage. So we'll be expanding our podcast. We'll be traveling a little bit more, going to more games on site. So very, very excited for that.
I love that. Well, I'd love to let our listeners know how they can find you and follow you and keep up with what you're doing. So what do
Yeah,
you have?
absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Caroline Fenton. It's just my name. If you are on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at Caroline Fenton1. You can get all my sports takes, hear my podcast there. And then you can also find me at Yahoo Sports. All of our podcasts are posted Spotify, YouTube at Yahoo Sports, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And then you can also hear me on SiriusXM. I'm on the SiriusXM College Sports channel and SiriusXM Mad Dog channels as well.
Okay. Well, I cannot tell you how much fun it is to have you back and
Thank you.
hear
It's been a
how you're
blast.
doing. Thanks for sharing all your stories and all your great advice. I know there's lots of up and coming women out there who are thinking about what they're going to do next. I think you had a lot of great advice and tips for them as they do that. So thanks
Oh,
for
I hope so. Absolutely. Just keep going. You got it. I'm excited for everyone out there, and I'm here for anyone. Always just an email, a phone call, a tweet, a DM away.
I love it. We're so glad to have Caroline with us today. Also want to remind everybody, TriDelta is powered by 2,500 amazing volunteers. We've all had an experience with one of them along the way somewhere. I don't know what we would do without them. They really do help power our organization. April 20th kicks off Volunteer Appreciation Week, so I hope you will take time to thank a TriDelta volunteer that week. Like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We have 3 stars in our crescent, but we love those 5-star ratings. Thanks for being with us today, and until next time, Delta Love.